I'm Carla Pereira, KC1HSX, and this is ARRL Audio News, your weekly summary of news, features, and commentary from ARRL headquarters in Newington, Connecticut. For listeners who rebroadcast ARRL Audio News on repeaters, listen for the Morse code K character, followed by 4 seconds of silence. That's your cue to momentarily stop transmitting so that your repeater timer can reset. A special note to our listeners, there will be no audio news next Friday, September 8th. Audio news will resume on the following Friday, September 15th. And now, our top stories. Amateur radio emergency service volunteers are pitching in to support communication at some Red Cross shelters in South Texas in the ongoing aftermath of the catastrophic and unprecedented flooding resulting from Hurricane Harvey. ARRL members also are serving as net control liaisons to the Harris County Office of Emergency Management. At least 36 volunteers were assisting at shelters, and another dozen were on tap to serve as liaisons. ARRL Emergency Preparedness Manager Mike Corey, KI1U, said the Red Cross is in need of Red Cross-trained shelter managers and volunteer management specialists. Anyone interested should contact Mike at mcorey@arrl.org. A variety of emergency, health and welfare, traffic, and tactical nets in South Texas are active on HF at various times of the day, as well as on a wide array of VHF and UHF repeaters, which remain available as needed. The Salvation Army Team Emergency Radio Network has been active on 14.265 megahertz, while the Military Auxiliary Radio Service has been using the 5.330.5 megahertz interoperability channel on 60 meters. As of midweek, Harvey, now a tropical storm, was headed northeast for a second landfall in Louisiana, where ARRL volunteers are on standby. This week, ARRL team members were being advised that the impact to the region's communications infrastructure has been relatively minimal, considering the strength of the storm and the magnitude of the flooding. The storm did ravage cellular service in some Texas counties, however, especially Aransas and Refugio counties, the FCC reported this week. Overall, however, the FCC said the cellular system was 95% functional. ARRL South Texas Public Information Officer Mike Urich, KA5CVH, told ARRL on August 30th that hardening of the telecommunications infrastructure to make it more immune to storm damage has diminished the need for amateur radio communication support and altered ham's traditional roles there.
I'm Steve Ford, WB8IMY at ARRL headquarters in Newington, Connecticut, and I'm speaking with Jeff Walter, KE5FGA. He's the ARRL South Texas Section Emergency Coordinator. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning.
How are things going down there? What's the latest status in what I guess now is technically the recovery operations of Hurricane Harvey?
Yes, sir. It is the recovery stage. As I look outside right now, it's perfectly sunshiny and quite a change from what it was 2 days ago.
And are the hams still providing communications as part of that effort, or how is that panning out at this point?
There is very little request for amateur radio operators. This has been a weird storm. All of the winds came down in the Corpus Christi area, and they got very little rain. And then as the storm moved up the coast, we got very little winds and all the rain. And surprisingly, there is no communication failure, very, very limited communication failure. So as long as everybody's got their cell phone, these managers at these pods and these shelters, they're good. They don't need a ham radio operator.
Have the hams been assisting the shelters and the operations in other capacities?
Yes, they have. In limited capacity, these shelters are set up, and then the request is received by me or others to send a ham radio operator there. And before we do that, we will have the ham call the shelter manager to make sure that they can actually get inside the site. They're not stopped by law enforcement or road closure or anything. And then if they have a good phone call and the manager accepts them to come to the site, then they'll go. If that handshake is not made, then we will not send the amateur.
Has the storm largely moved into Louisiana and Arkansas at this point?
Yes, it has. I haven't paid much attention to what the storm is actually doing. My concentration is more of moving resources. We have for those that are interested, we have a website, www.arrlstx.org, where we post our daily update on ICS forms. So anyone can access that and send me an email, my call sign at arrl.net, if they want to help, and we'll put them on the list. And if we can use them, we'll notify them and let them know where they can help us out.
Well, thank you very much for your efforts, Jeff. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Several major de-expeditions will take place in the coming months, and preparations are already underway. The Mellish Reef VK9MA team said that it plans to focus on the lower bands during its November 2017 de-expedition. Mellish Reef is the 29th most wanted DXCC entity. The 9-operator team will set sail on November 1st from Australia, arriving on November 3rd. The de-expedition will depart Mellish Reef on November 16th. Data modes, and especially RTTY, will be one focus of the VK9MA de-expedition, and the team says it may give JT65, JT9, and the newly popular but still beta FT8 a try. During their 13-day stay on the reef, team members will run 4 complete stations around the clock. The 3Y0Z de-expedition to Bouvet Island team reports it now has 10 transceivers in hand, with shipping containers and accessories. The Bouvet Island de-expedition will have 14 stations, each with its own computer. All gear will be checked out thoroughly in advance. 2 of the stations will be set up for an early September team meeting in Atlanta. ARRL has granted an unspecified Colvin Award to help support the Bouvet Island de-expedition, and the Northern California DX Foundation contributed $100,000. The Bouvet de-expedition is planned to take place in January 2018, and the team hopes to be on the air for 14 to 16 days. The estimated cost of the de-expedition is around $750,000. Don Greenbaum, N1DG, reports that Dateline DX Association is making progress in planning its 2018 de-expedition to Baker and Howland Islands, the 4th most wanted DXCC entity, according to Club Log's DXCC Most Wanted list. The DDXA team will operate from the Baker Island National Wildlife Refuge. Greenbaum says a ship has been chartered with the arrival on the island during the 3rd week of June. The de-expeditioners will spend 12 days on the island, with 10 days set aside for radio operation. All preparations are subject to the approval of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, which administers the Baker Island National Wildlife Refuge, and the ship and dates were chosen in consultation with the agency. The 11 operators on the team are covering one half of the estimated $400,000 cost of the de-expedition and are seeking financial support for the rest. Greenbaum, Tom Harrell, N4XP, and Kevin Rowett, K6TD, are team co-leaders.
And now with this week's satellite update, here's Bruce Page, KK5DO.
Time is drawing near. If you have not returned your AMSAT Board of Directors ballot, you have until September 15th to do so. ARRL reminds amateur operators that the voice repeater aboard the ISS has not officially been activated for general radio contacts, although some stations have reported successful contacts using 437.050 MHz FM as the uplink and 145.800 MHz FM as the downlink. The crossband was actually set up to transmit telemetry from the Tanusha satellites at the last minute because the Russians were concerned about getting telemetry from their satellites, which might be spinning more than they had expected. This would allow the nearby ISS receiver to capture and retransmit telemetry that is not being picked up on the ground. Using the radio as a voice repeater for general contacts does interfere with the intended mission of supporting relay of telemetry. Please do not use the crossband repeater on the ISS at this time. Thanks to the AMSAT News Service for this week's stories. This is Bruce Page, KK5DO, for the ARRL Audio News.
I'm Steve Ford, WB8IMY, and this is the ARRL Propagation Report for September 1st, 2017. There is a new sunspot moving into view over the sun's eastern limb, and it's already generating some small Class C flares. At this point, we can't predict if this spot is going to release some larger explosions or remain a minor actor on the cosmic stage. Along with the new sunspot, we have some new coronal holes that may be sending some solar particles our way this weekend and into next week. With that in mind, of course, look for disruptions on the HF bands at 10 megahertz and above. The remnants of Hurricane Harvey are moving toward the northeast, and this may generate some tropospheric band openings on VHF and UHF. At the same time, hams in the west may see some unique and interesting band openings caused by a weather front that's moving along the length of the Rockies.
And that concludes ARRL Audio News for this week. Our thanks to all contributors to this week's report. ARRL Audio News is produced by the American Radio Relay League, the National Association for Amateur Radio. For more information on amateur radio or the ARRL, visit us on the web at arrl.org. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter by searching for ARRL. If you have a question or comment about ARRL Audio News, email us at audionews@arrl.org. This program is copyright ARRL, all rights reserved. 73, and thanks for listening.